behavior. Behind the story of our human brain, surely the most awesome thing on earth, is the essence of our universal human attributes and our individual traits. What makes you, you? In important ways, we are each unique. We look different, we sound different, we have varying personalities, interests, and cultural and family backgrounds. We are also the leaves of one tree. Our human family shares not only a common biological heritage, cut us and we bleed, but also common behavioral tendencies. Our shared brain architecture predisposes us to sense the world, develop language, and feel hunger through identical mechanisms. Whether we live in the Arctic or the tropics, we prefer sweet taste to sour. We divide the color spectrum into similar colors, and we feel drawn to behaviors that produce and protect offspring. Our kinship appears in our social behaviors as well. Whether named Huang, Nkomo, Smith, or Gonzalez, we start fearing strangers at about 8 months, and as teenagers and adults, we prefer the company of those with attitudes and attributes similar to our own. Coming from different parts of the globe, we know how to read one another's smiles and frowns. As members of one species, we affiliate, conform, return favors, punish offenses, organize hierarchies of status, and grieve a child's death. A visitor from outer space could drop in anywhere and find humans dancing and feasting, singing and worshiping, playing sports and games, laughing and crying, living in families, and forming groups. Taken together, such universal behaviors define our human nature. What causes our striking diversity and also our shared human nature? How much are human differences shaped by our differing genes? And how much by our environment, by every external influence, from maternal nutrition while in the womb to social support while nearing the tomb? This unit begins to tell the complex story of how our genes, nature, and environment's nurture define us. Section 3C.1, Behavior Genetics, Predicting Individual Differences. Number 1, what are genes and how do behavior geneticists explain our individual differences? If Jaden Agassi, son of tennis stars Andre Agassi and Stephanie Graf, grows up to be a tennis star, should we attribute his superior talent to his Grand Slam genes, to his growing up in a tennis-rich environment, to high expectations? Such questions intrigue behavior geneticists who study our differences and weigh the effects and interplay of heredity and environment. Section 3C.1.1, Genes, Our Codes for Life. Barely more than a century ago, few would have guessed that every cell nucleus in your body contains the genetic master code for your entire body. It's as if every room in the Pentagon had a book containing the architect's plans for the entire structure. The plans for your own book of life run to 46 chapters, 23 donated by your mother from her egg, and 23 by your father from his sperm. Each of these 46 chapters, called a chromosome, is composed of a coiled chain of the molecule DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Genes, small segments of the giant DNA molecules, form the words of those chapters, figure 3.40. All told, you have 30,000 or so gene words. Genes can be either active, expressed, or inactive. Environmental events turn on genes, rather like hot water enabling a tea bag to express its flavor. When turned on, genes provide the code for creating protein molecules, the building blocks of physical development. Your DNA and mine are 99.9% the same. At the DNA level, we are clearly all part of one big worldwide family. Francis Collins, Human Genome Project Director, 2007. We share half our genes with the banana. Evolutionary biologist Robert May, President of Britain's Royal Society, 2001. Genetically speaking, every other human is close to being your identical twin. Human genome researchers have discovered the common sequence within human DNA. It is this shared genetic profile that makes us humans rather than chimpanzees or tulips. Actually, we aren't all that different from our chimpanzee cousins. With them, we share about 96% of our DNA sequence. Michelson et al., 2005. At functionally important DNA sites, reports one molecular genetics team, The human-chimpanzee DNA similarity is 99.4%. Wildman et al., 2003. Yet that wee difference matters. Despite some remarkable abilities, chimpanzees grunt. Shakespeare intricately wove some 24,000 words to form his literary masterpieces. And small differences matter among chimpanzees, too. Two species, common chimpanzees and bonobos, differ by much less than 1% of their genomes, yet they display markedly differing behaviors. Chimpanzees are aggressive and male-dominated. Bonobos are peaceable and female-led. Geneticists and psychologists are interested in the occasional variations found at particular gene sites in human DNA. Slight person-to-person variations from the common pattern give clues to our uniqueness, why one person has a disease that another does not, why one person is short and another tall, why one is outgoing and another shy. Most of our traits are influenced by many genes. How tall you are, for example, reflects the size of your face, vertebrae, leg bones, and so forth, each of which may be influenced by different genes interacting with your environment. Complex traits such as intelligence, happiness, and aggressiveness are similarly influenced by groups of genes. Thus, our genetic predispositions, our genetically influenced traits, help explain both our shared human nature and our human diversity. Section 3C.1.2 Twin and Adoption Studies. To scientifically tease apart the influences of environment and heredity, behavior geneticists would need to design two types of experiments. The first would control the home environment while varying heredity. The second would control heredity while varying the home environment. Such experiments with human infants would be unethical, but happily for our purposes, nature has done this work for us. Identical versus fraternal twins. Identical twins who develop from a single fertilized egg that splits in two are genetically identical. Figure 3.41. They are nature's own human clones. Indeed, clones who share not only the same genes, but the same conception, uterus, birth date, and usually the same cultural history. Two slight qualifications. Although identical twins have the same genes, they don't always have the same number of copies of those genes. That may help explain why one twin may be more at risk for certain illnesses. Bruder et al., 2008. Most identical twins share a placenta during prenatal development, but one of every 3 sets has 2 separate placentas. One twin's placenta may provide slightly better nourishment, which may contribute to identical twin differences. Davis et al., 1995, Phelps et al., 1997, Sokol et al., 1995. As genomics researcher J. Craig Venter said in 2006, it will inevitably be revealed that there are strong genetic components associated with more aspects of what we attribute to human existence, including personality subtypes, language capabilities, mechanical abilities, intelligence, sexual activities and preferences, intuitive thinking, quality of memory, willpower, temperament, athletic abilities, etc. Fraternal twins develop from separate fertilized eggs. They share a fetal environment, but they are genetically no more similar than ordinary brothers and sisters. Shared genes can translate into shared experiences. A person whose identical twin has Alzheimer's disease, for example, has a 60% risk of getting the disease. If the affected twin is fraternal, the risk is only 30%. Plomin et al., 1997. Are identical twins, being genetic clones of one another, also behaviorally more similar than fraternal twins? Studies of thousands of twin pairs in Sweden, Finland, and Australia provide a consistent answer. On both extroversion, outgoingness, and neuroticism, emotional instability, identical twins are much more similar than fraternal twins. If genes influence traits such as emotional instability, might they also influence the social effects of such traits? To find out, Matt Magoo and David Lycan, 1992, studied divorce rates among 1,500 same-sex middle-aged twin pairs. Their result? If you have a fraternal twin who has divorce, the odds of your divorcing go up 1.6 times. compared with having a not divorced twin. If you have an identical twin who has divorced, the odds of your divorcing go up 5.5 times. From such data, McHugh and Lycan estimate that people's differing divorce risks are about 50% attributable to genetic factors. When John Lelin and Robert Nichols, 1976, gave a battery of questionnaires to 850 U.S. twin pairs, identical twins, more than fraternal twins, also reported being treated alike. So did their experience, rather than their genes, account for their similarity? No, said Lelin and Nichols, identical twins whose parents treated them alike were not psychologically more alike than identical twins who were treated less similarly. In explaining individual differences, genes matter. Sweden has the world's largest national twin registry, 140,000 living and dead twin pairs, which form part of a massive registry of 600,000 twins currently being sampled in the world's largest twin study. Wheelwright, 2004, www.genomatwin.org. Separated twins. Imagine the following science fiction experiment. A mad scientist decides to separate identical twins at birth, then rear them in differing environments. Better yet, consider a true story. On a chilly February morning in 1979, sometime after divorcing his first wife, Linda, Jim Lewis awoke in his modest home next to his second wife, Betty. Determined that this marriage would work, Jim made a habit of leaving love notes to Betty around the house. As he lay in bed, he thought about others he had loved, including his son, James Allen, and his faithful dog, Toy. Jim was looking forward to spending part of the day in his basement woodworking shop, where he had put in many happy hours building furniture, picture frames, and other items, including a white bench now circling a tree in his front yard. Jim also liked to spend free time driving a Chevy, watching stock car racing, and drinking Miller Lite beer. Jim was basically healthy, except for occasional half-day migraine headaches and blood pressure that was a little high, perhaps related to his chain-smoking habit. He had become overweight a while back, but had shed some of the pounds. Having undergone a vasectomy, he was done having children. What was extraordinary about Jim Lewis, however, was that at that moment, I am not making this up, there existed another man also named Jim for whom all these things, right down to the dog's name, were also true. This other Jim, Jim Springer, just happened 38 years earlier to have been his womb mate. 37 days after their birth, these genetically identical twins were separated, adopted by blue-collar families, and reared with no contact or knowledge of each other's whereabouts until the day Jim Lewis received a call from his genetic clone, who, having been told he had a twin, set out to find him. 1 month later, the brothers became the first twin pair tested by University of Minnesota psychologist Thomas Bouchard and his colleagues, beginning a study of separated twins that extends to the present. Holden, 1980, Wright, 1998. Given tests measuring their personality, intelligence, heart rate, and brain waves, the Jim twins, despite 38 years of separation, were virtually as alike as the same person tested twice. Their voice intonations and inflections were so similar that hearing a playback of an earlier interview, Jim Springer guessed, "That's me." Wrong. It was his brother. Identical twins Oscar Storr and Jack Eufy presented equally striking similarities.